Welcome back to Peak Your Interest podcast. I am Tanner Greenwalt with the Greenwalt team of First Home Mortgage, and we have our two insurance girls with us back today. Ladies, introduce yourselves if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I'm Alexis with the Jack Hutchison Agency.
And I'm Paige with the Jack Hutchison Agency.
Yeah, well, welcome back. And today we're going to be talking about kind of the process of clients when they're under contract and they have to get homeowners insurance, what that looks like, what it means, things like that. So in the mortgage process, when we have clients who, again, are under contract, one of the steps that they have to do is collect homeowners insurance. They got to call, they've got to get a quote, they've got to give the insurance people the closing date so that we can make sure everything is wrapped up before closing and set in place kind of thing. So the ladies that we have today are going to chat about what that looks like when they get a call from a client and, what they do on their end. So let's just dive in.
Okay.
Yeah. Paige?
All right. So you definitely want to, we understand there's a lot going on, there's a lot of different paperwork and things you have to kind of get together, but you don't want to leave your insurance to be one of the afterthoughts because most people's insurance is going to go into their escrow. That's going to change what's coming out of your pocket monthly. Just so you have a full idea. Also, there could be some potential issues that we'll get into that you don't want to wait till the last second.
Yeah.
If you're under contract, you're obviously going to know the home that you're looking at, but there are some people that will call us before that in the process and they'll just say, hey, I'm looking to buy a home in Annapolis. How much is that going to cost? We need a little bit more information than that. But once you're under contract, everything's very specialized to a particular property and even to a particular client. So it's just good to give us a call and see what your options are and what your pricing is going to be like as soon as you can.
Yeah. I would say for the basic time frame, I would say we can issue a policy 30 days in advance. Mm-hmm. So, for the most accurate rating, I would say at least 30 days to give us time. Yep. And I think that would be my biggest suggestion.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what can clients expect from getting a policy? So they call you and now they have the information that you guys need in order to generate that policy. What happens after that?
I would say, just kind of to play on what Paige was saying, there are questions that we do have to ask. They're just for us to be able to get you the most accurate quote. Right. Some people, they're like, why do you need to know that? And you're like, well, I'm sorry, I do have to know some because it's particular. Yeah,
it can be very personal.
Yeah. So, it's going to pull through. We're going to do the quote. We're going to work it up. We're going to send it to you. Obviously, you're going to shop, do whatever you got to do. And then once you go ahead, we can get it issued. We submit it to the carrier. You have to sign your application. We submit it to you guys. Afterwards, I would say, there are inspections that come up. I don't want to jump back, but to jump back, always having your mortgage information is very handy because we do need to be able to bill it to somebody because we're not billing it to you, we're billing it to the mortgage company. So your mortgage, P.O. box, loan, sometimes you call it your account number, having that kind of prepared. And then the inspections come into play. Sometimes you can self-inspect, sometimes you can just take pictures on your phone if you have that capability, or the carrier will come out and inspect the property for you.
Yeah, a lot of the information nowadays will come through square footage, things like that. Every single detail isn't known, so we'll try to ask people, is the basement finished? Is there anything in the yard that we might not see? So we'll try to ask as much questions as possible because you want to make sure that is included in the policy. The inspection, the photos and things help kind of, there's a couple checks and balances for that because, people don't always know every answer, but you definitely want to make sure that's in the coverage of the policy. We'll also need to know, are you married? Your spouse's information, we're not trying to just get in your business. We do need to know. And then, that does go into your rate as well. Have you had homeowners insurance before? Things like that. They'll also look at any possible claims that might have happened at the property. Some companies, if it's not your house, they're not going to hold that against you. Some companies will. So even if it's the previous owner had some situations, they may look at that as like more high risk that, something could happen again. So, we definitely need to know all the details like as possible up front. And you don't want to surprise. You don't want to think you're paying $1,000 and then at the end you're paying $2,000. So we try to do everything as detailed as possible in the beginning so there's no surprises after the fact.
I think that's appreciated on all parties' parts. Yeah. Let me ask you this. So would you, as, insurance agents, would you prefer to have, like if a client called in and said, should I just send you photos and inspect it myself? Or do you recommend having an inspector go out and actually do it?
It's based on the carrier and what they kind of expect and what they need.
Usually there's an app usually too. It's not always just like they're sending us the photos themselves. A lot of times there's like an app that they'll need to use because there's other, I don't know exactly how it works, kind of algorithms to see like square footage based on things. So sometimes you'll have to do the self-inspect through the company, will send you a link to do that yourself. I mean, we definitely like to get people to send us photos up front just in case there is any issues that we want to let them know about. A lot of the companies will do like, even before we issue the policy, like an aerial kind of like satellite view. One of the main things they look at for that is if there's any like trees that are overhanging the house or the garage at all, and just like the condition of the roof. So a lot of times now, if we do the initial quote even before issuing it, they will look at that up top view, and if there is an issue that they're potentially seeing, then we can't even really issue the policy. Sometimes the angle isn't the best or it's kind of wavy, you can't see. At that point, we might ask clients to send us a photo just themselves.
But we don't want to make them do like double the work because they're still going to have to do it with the carrier too. So we kind of try to make it as little effort on their side as possible. You also have photos online because it's public knowledge when a home's up for sale, it's on the market. We try to use, property search online to go for the square footage and things like that. But we ask those additional questions to you guys. And just in case there's something that may have been different, like, oh, now the basement's 100% finished, or now it's, I don't know, the previous owner just put on an addition or something like that. There's certain specialties like, I don't know, certain type of flooring, siding, roof shapes that the carriers also take into account that may not be as visible or what have you online.
It's kind of funny to like think about, like obviously I'm in the mortgage industry, but like I didn't know that stuff played like the shape of the roof and all that stuff. That's cool a little bit. It's weird but cool.
Some of them, when I first started, I had to like Google like, what is this? Like, what is this shape? Because I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting to see just different people's homes and styles and stuff like that, but they definitely get pretty detailed on there. Where else should we go from here?
The inspections, I think. So to play more into what do we look for, or what do the carriers per se, at least the ones that we work with, look for. Like I was kind of going on like material, versus if it's just shingle, or some people have a metal roof, some, those things get incorporated to your rate, because what if your house burns down to the ground? We're not going to replace it with shingle if it's not. Any special flooring, countertops, if they're like marble, there's different levels of like builder's grade. So for your bathroom, so it's either like builder's grade, semi-custom, custom, where we can do a different level of coverage to make sure you're adequately, covered in that instinct. Foundation type, basement, crawl space, slab, those are always important to know. Those get rated differently. Certain basics like how many bathrooms you have, fireplaces, pools, trampoline. Those inspections are going to see whether you have any, potential hazards on the property, kind of like she was saying, but the inspections will be able to see, does your pool have a fence that's locked? So, kids that are just running around the neighborhood aren't just like running into your backyard and drowning, like God forbid, knock on wood, but like things like that happen, or trampolines with no net. Like that's not typically with the carriers we work with, at least in their appetite. So there's a few things like that.
So sorry not to interrupt you. Let me ask you, because I think this kind of plays on what you're talking about. What types of coverages are there, and what do you recommend for people who are like maybe first-time home buyers and they might have, a pool or something like that, or a trampoline, you know what I mean, kind of thing?
I mean, I would say just for like liability issues for your pool, your trampoline, going from $300,000 to $500,000 in liability on your home is very insignificant in the premium. So I would say, if you do have those things, increase that. Certain basics, I mean, just knowing the details of your policy more in depth is beneficial to you, to make sure our coverage knows what you have. But I mean, basic endorsements, which are just, changes that you can make to your policy. I mean, my biggest thing is that I always include replacement cost contents. We always do additional replacement costs on the dwelling. So that's basically getting what you paid for, so you don't receive any depreciation. And then a number one claim, I would say, would be water backup. That's kind of any sewage that comes from your sinks, showers, or toilets. I always include that on all the quotes that I have. But there's certain endorsements that you don't have to have, so that's just an option. Some people like to get their costs down to get to closing, and you can add it later, but I recommend adding it later.
That's so important. People, because I don't think people understand that you can change your policy after closing. People think that they're stuck with the same policy that they have, but you are able to change it.
Yes.
You don't have to wait till your renewals or anything like that. There are a very few things that you can't do anytime, but pretty much mostly any other coverage you can kind of change. Gotcha. Another thing too, I think that people that are just buying are a little bit confused about, like, your coverage on your house. And again, if you have a requirement for closing, then of course that we're going to be in line with that. But a lot of times people are thinking like, well, I would sell my house for more than that. But on your policy, just on our side of it, like, we're not taking your land value. Like, you might have an acre lot, which is obviously going to increase your price, but we're not, repairing your grass that's, 50 yards away from the house. So sometimes people are a little bit confused on that of like what the coverage is actually for. Like the dwelling's basically your main coverage, which would rebuild the structure of the house. Your personal belongings is another kind of section there. There are some limitations on that. Like if people want to have like certain jewelry, certain specialty items, that's something people should definitely think about. And like you said, the extra coverages for water backup. Flood is not included on anybody's homeowners. That's a separate policy. Yep. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they're in a flood zone, it's going to be required for the mortgage to have that. But even if you aren't, that can really kind of happen anywhere. So not to add extra premium on, originally, but if that's something that you need to have,
or you're just concerned with, something you're not typically, mm-hmm. I think we discussed this last time, but you're not typically in a flood zone per se, where it's more of a hazard for you, but sometimes you're close to the water and things happen. Mm-hmm.
Even if it just rains a lot.
Yeah. But like she was saying, land movement's not covered. We insure the structure, not the land that it's on. So that's definitely, a common misconception. But yeah, water coming in, seeping in that way. I mean, there's just a lot of things where the companies have to regulate, the coverages. So like, unfortunately, like flood, like you have to get a separate policy for that. And that's regulated through, we don't have any, we don't have any control over that.
Yeah. And that's what we do, honestly, on the mortgage aspect. Like that's one of the first things we do is we run, a flood cert, and we make sure that it's either not in a flood zone or it is. And if it is, we've got to make sure we let everybody know. And so it's something that we deal with upfront kind of thing. But yeah, that's good to know that it's not wrapped up with the insurance policy kind of thing.
Yeah. Another thing that I actually think is important to mention for inspections, and I actually just ran into this recently too. It's common, but sometimes there isn't fire hydrants close. That's definitely a common thing that's important because if you don't have a water source, if your house catches on fire, then that's more of a risk, So where are they going to get the water from? Sometimes the tanks, we've discussed this briefly before, but sometimes the tanks aren't enough or in the carrier's eyes enough to be able to put out a fire depending on how big your house is. So that's something that also is important.
Yeah, how far away the fire department is from you. Is it volunteer? I mean, I know a lot of places in Crownsville, not that close from here, they don't have fire hydrants in a lot of the neighborhoods at all. sometimes they have like a man-made lake or some other water source, or
Right.
they have 4 fire departments that can go, in a very small radius. But that's definitely something they look at. If you do have sprinklers, that's a huge savings. If you are going to get any type of, alarm system, things like that, it's not required unless the house is over, $1 million, $2 million. Some companies make you have that. But it's good to just let people know any safety features that you're planning on putting in yourself, even ring cameras, anything like that, because it gives you some added discounts just for price wise.
Gotcha.
Or I know a lot of people are, the roof age is one of the number one things. It does save you a significant amount of money. A lot of people are like, oh, well, after closing, I'm going to put the roof on, or maybe the prior owner is going to do that before we go to closing. So if there's anything like that that's going to change in the recent future, we can add that on up front, just so that you're getting the best rate at the time. Because that does happen a lot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or later. But yeah, I know a lot of people in that, interim period, like, if we were at your house with, a 20-year-old roof and then you getting a brand new one in a month, then we could give you the better rate up front. But
And some carriers don't even want the policy if the roof isn't newer either. Like there's a lot of restrictions that have been going on just because inflation, claim influx. Certain carriers are like, well, it needs to be at least 15 to 20 years old.
Right.
In order to, write you the policy in the first place. So
this doesn't happen too much in Maryland, but again, there's certain areas or certain times of the year, like if there is a hurricane coming, some of the insurance carriers are saying we're not writing any new policies for this time frame. Or, this is again more like if you're looking at Florida or South Carolina kind of thing, there may be certain parts of the year where they're not going to issue a new policy because they don't want to issue,
you're
the
getting a policy because
you've been here for 2 days and then your house blows down. So they're a little bit cautious on that. That's probably not going to affect too many people in Maryland, but there can be certain situations where they won't issue a policy during a high risk time frame. So that's becoming more kind of common. Again, it doesn't happen too much in Maryland, but stuff's always changing. You never know.
Yeah. And we have it pop up on the site too, like restriction in Delaware or wherever it is. More and more. I have seen it more this past year, I think, than ever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And not for closing purposes, but if you just want to get a flood policy, which we definitely recommend. If you're not in a high flood zone, it's not that expensive. It may be $400 or $500 a year. Everybody's house is different, but the lowest rated ones aren't too bad. But if it's not required, they don't issue any coverage for a month. So if I get it today, I'm not going to have it effective for 30 days. So they're mainly doing that because they don't want people to call right before, a hurricane and then get the policy. So
I understand.
there can be some hold up with that kind of coverage as well. But so far in Maryland, it doesn't happen too often.
Actually, talking about closing, so just sidebar. When we have clients who are under contract and they contact you guys for their homeowners insurance, the way that it's paid is we as lenders, we collect escrow accounts. So everything, part of your cash to close, we're collecting escrows to pay off your homeowner's insurance for the year. It also goes to property taxes as well. But that's something that we take care of for you as the mortgage lender. So that's something that I wanted to throw in there as well. To touch on that, not to touch on that, but discounts kind of thing, because I know people want to save money anywhere that they can. What are your thoughts, tips, anything about discounts when it comes to in policy?
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
There's things like she was kind of saying earlier, your alarm, if it's monitored, so if it's being sent to the police when somebody break in or the fire department when there's something going on, if it's a fire burglar alarm, you're getting different levels of coverage. You need to submit proof for that. If it is central, they need the alarm certificate. And then there's, the next level down where it's just like a ring camera. So letting your carrier or agent know about that. Your roof age, your HVAC, when that was last updated. Sometimes even carriers like to look at the wiring and plumbing. If it's like an older home and that had to be redone recently, that can kind of play into it. And then I would say also to base it off coverages, you can adjust your deductible. So on the homeowners now, a lot of carriers start at 1,000, but you can go to 2,500, 5,000. Obviously, if the price is right, you can adjust it. But I mean, if it makes sense, then do it. There's certain things where I'm like, would you even file a claim for under 2,500? I don't recommend that. Yeah. So I mean, just like little things like that.
Bundling your other, policies together if you're able. There are certain situations where you aren't able to do that, but, the majority of the time, you should probably try to have your stuff together. And, there's plenty of people, and we appreciate loyalty. We want all of our people to stay with us forever, but there's a lot of people that are like, well, I've had my auto, at this place for 20 years. And you're like, okay, but your home is probably your most significant product and financial investment that anyone's going to have. So if you're trusting a company with your most number one asset, then you probably should trust them with your car as well. Usually most companies are around 20 to 30% off both auto and home. So you're normally saving on both. As far as liability side, like you were saying, there's umbrella policies and things like that. So really just the extra, as many policies as you can have at the same company. Normally that's kind of the way to go. Your deductibles, things like that can also reduce your rate.
I would say a basic one that not a lot of people get to take advantage of is just the advanced quote discount. So like we were saying, definitely give us at least 30 days, gives you the advanced quote discount, obviously, and then it gives you the most accurate quote. But I mean, at least, I would say, it depends on the carrier, obviously, but 8 to 10 days, 2 weeks in advance, if you're getting that, I mean, it can be a couple $100 sometimes. And you're like, how did I change this by a week and it went down $200?
And you can't get that back later. So if that's not on there when we issue it, then it's not going to be on that policy. Some stuff that may be out of your control too, but another thing that companies look at, when you're coming to them or getting a new policy with the same company, is number one, how long you've had insurance. You may not have owned a home. We understand that. Or also how long you've been with the same company. So if you've been with the same company for 5 or more years, 3 to 5 or more years, even if you go to a different carrier, they're going to give you a better rate there because obviously people want to keep you. Yeah. Rates are definitely crazy right now. We totally understand that. If you're saving a significant amount, look, we understand that. There's no hard feelings that you got to do what's right for you. But if you're moving around every single year, you're ultimately really not going to help yourself. The rates are going to go up and down with every company. So it's not always good to say, oh, well, I want to look every single year and then move, because if you have a claim, they're not going to, they're going to pay out your claim, but if you've been with a company for a significant amount of time, it's going to be
There's just certain extensions that they can maybe do or what have you, but...
I have a question actually, and I just thought about this sitting here. Yeah. So with mortgage rates, they're fixed. Once you lock it in, you've got your fixed mortgage rate unless you refinance or, you have an ARM kind of thing. Does the rate stay the same with homeowners insurance policies? Does it change? Explain that.
Yeah, it changes. I mean, it can fluctuate. At every renewal, it's likely to go either up, down. Sometimes it can stay the same, but they definitely fluctuate. They're not fixed. They're not locked in.
Yeah, normally for the one renewal period, so usually for the year, unless you make a change or there's something discovered that would change the rate. For that year is locked in.
These inspections we've been talking about, that could change the rate.
Yeah. So again, if we issue one thing and then, there's 300 more square feet we didn't have, things like that. There's also a 45-day look period with any insurance policy, at least in Maryland. So if there's something that you didn't disclose or that we didn't know about, it could change it. But normally your rate is locked within that year time frame each year. Okay. Unless you initiate a change or something like that. So, but yeah, there's no way to lock in your rate more than 1 year. If people also say, well, what about next year? We have no clue what the rate's going to be next year. The companies don't automatically just increase your rate for no reason. There's a lot more that goes into it. I know it seems like that. But yeah, so the rates are really regulated by Maryland Insurance Commissioner. There's a lot of other things. So the office can't just go and say, well, we need to make some more revenue. We're going to add $500 onto this policy. Like, that's not a thing. That it doesn't work like that.
I get that question a lot when there's a claim in their household or something. And they say, well, how much is it going to increase my premium when I renew? And we have no idea. Even we've tried to call in and kind of do that, like dance with the underwriters at with the carriers, but they barely even know, because we like she was saying, we can't predict what the rates are going to be like in a year, and we don't. It's based off how much is paid out in your claim.
What type
of loss. So I get that question a lot.
Yeah, we get a lot of rate questions too. Like even like, what's it going to be next month? I have no clue.
What's a generalized number? Can you give me just a guesstimate? No,
because it's based off of multiple factors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask that question because I felt like we get that question a lot, and it sounds like you guys do as well.
That's why we're trying to be as cautious and detailed as possible up front, so that what we give you on the quote originally, or what we issue the policy for, is we don't have a lot of change after it's issued, because it doesn't benefit us. It doesn't benefit the customer. We don't want to trick you into getting a policy with us. We want you to know pretty much exactly what your price is going to be, through that time frame at least. But there's no way to know like over the next year or so after your renew what it's going to be. But we try to do as best we can with like expectation of the pricing and all that.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, people are going to have the question,
But that was a good question. But through your year, normally it's set. But that's the most time frame that we're able to like guarantee what the pricing's going to be.
Gotcha. Well, do you ladies have anything else to add, or have we covered a good portion?
I think that was all my lists on the extra tips for us.
I guess like the only other thing, and we kind of tipped on it, is, a lot of people are like, well, why are you doing the inspection? It's not anything negative. I mean, it can definitely be a positive to people. Everybody knows everything's expensive. Your rates are going up. We just want to make sure that the property is maintained. There's also stuff that you might not be aware of purchasing it. I mean, there's plenty of times when people call to get a rate, and I'm like, there's been 4 water claims at this property and not that long. We never tell people what to do. We're never saying don't get this house or what, but there's some benefits to the customer trying to keep rates down for claims that really shouldn't be paid out. Everyone's paying extra for everybody else. So and then just not every agent is detailed. Some people will just look at, well, what's your closing price? We'll just write it for that, and then don't really go more into it than that. But all of this stuff is a benefit to the client. It's only going to be a plus to them to make sure they're covered if they need something. And
I definitely think it's good to stress the importance that these inspections really are for a benefit, obviously for the carrier themselves and for the clientele, that it's accurately rated. Your home is safe and in good condition and maintained properly. I think that's very important. And, now that we're in this different kind of day and age with, insurance and inflation and things, that inspections are being done at renewal too more often than I've ever seen before. So it's just good to be prepared and just know, like, at first where it's like, hey, here's this issue, and you're like, an issue, with the insurance, kind of thing. I just like to stress that, we're here to help, especially the agency, to help guide you and walk you through that process. We understand that it can be frustrating and annoying and all the things. So that's kind of, just what we're here for.
Yeah. Well, homeowners insurance is required if you're looking to purchase a home. We include it in a monthly payment. We, have contact with the homeowners insurance to get the quotes that we need, the paperwork that we need in order to get it to the closing table. So it is something that is required if you're looking to buy a home. Obviously, you are able to shop around. We do have 2 wonderful ladies here, but if there's any type of questions that you have, their information is going to be at the end of the video as well as mine. But we hope that you found this super helpful. And thank you for coming in, lady.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.